Hello friends, it's a beautiful sunny day today. This is a sermon on the gospel for this coming Sunday, January 31st, 2021. It's the fourth Sunday after the Epiphany, or Lectionary 4b, and the gospel reading is Mark 1, 21 to 28. Mark 1, verses 21 to 28. So if you'd like to pause me and have a look at that passage now, you go ahead and do that, and then we will resume. I mentioned a little while back that for me, January is the cruelest month. And so January 31st marks something of a milestone for me every year, as well as for many others who suffer from mental illness. January is often the cruelest month for those of us who suffer from any kind of mental illness. As I write this and record this sermon, it happens to be Bell Let's Talk Day, a campaign to raise awareness of and combat the stigma around mental illness in Canada. I remember telling you recently that I was so happy to flip the calendar over to 2021 and put 2020 behind us, and yet that new calendar month always begins with my cruelest month. The new calendar year always begins with my cruelest month. And I mean, it's not like the awfulness of 2020 has suddenly disappeared with the flip of a calendar. COVID-19 is still ravaging the world, and therefore isolation, illness, and death are still ravaging billions of lives. Death seems more prominent than ever. Systemic racism, poverty, and environmental destruction show no signs of abating. And of course, physical and mental illness still create a great deal of brokenness in the world. Now, when Jesus appears in Mark's Gospel, it is as if the calendar has been flipped over for the world, right? At last, Jesus announces at the very beginning of Mark's Gospel that the reign of God has come near. Some long-awaited good news Jesus is announcing to the world. Healing, peace, and justice have come near. This is good news. But then, immediately, he encounters a man with an unclean spirit. And yes, he heals the man, but there are many things for him and for us yet to do, for many unclean spirits remain. Now, we are not totally clear what it was that man was dealing with that day. Perhaps it was mental illness. But whether it was that, or demon possession, or epilepsy, or something else, doesn't really matter. Whatever it was preventing the man from being free to become who God made him to be. So stated that way, the term unclean spirit doesn't seem so foreign to us anymore. It was preventing him from having his own voice as the unclean spirit spoke for him. It prevented him from having control over his own body as it convulsed him. It prevented him from community as it isolated him, and it prevented him from dignity as it dehumanized him. Writing in a commentary recently, Osvaldo Vigna continues saying this: "Some of us might even name the current pandemic and its global effects as just such a demon or unclean spirit, a huge, powerful force that robs us of life, of loved ones, of community, of safety. Whether we regard such forces as spiritual, psychological, biological, metaphorical, or cultural, this gospel story tells us true things about how unclean spirits affect and manipulate our souls." I just love the way he phrases that, because we all know what he is talking about when he speaks of unclean spirits that way. Okay, so here comes Jesus. And in Mark's Gospel, the overriding theme is Jesus' battle with the unclean spirits, with all that dehumanizes in any way, with all that gets in the way of us, of humanity, altogether, of human community, being all that God created us to be. So here comes Jesus, and what does he do? Well, he makes a beginning. He heals one man. calendar has flipped over for the world, And he doesn't fix everything. He fixes one thing. The thing is, at this point in history, you might ask, well, since Jesus came so long ago, announcing and inaugurating God's reign, why are we still having to deal with unclean spirits 2,000 years later? Well, Christians have been struggling with this since the very beginning. And the only true answer, as in much of Christian life, I guess, is, I don't know. Why are some people, why is our society, why is our world still subject to forces that possess and dehumanize? I don't really know. When Jesus came, his ministry didn't change the whole world, as David Lowes points out this week in his commentary, but his ministry in this story did change this one man's world. It's one little victory. And then Jesus moves on down the road and wins one more little victory, and then Jesus recruits some more help and some more disciples and moves on down the road yet again and wins yet one more little victory. And then finally, Jesus recruits you and me and all our brothers and sisters at First Lutheran Church and wins yet more little victories. Every time we hand food to a hungry person at food bank, it's one little victory. Every time a person is welcomed and treated with dignity, the same as anyone else, it's one little victory. Every time strangers become friends at First Lutheran Church, it's one little victory. Every time refugees are sponsored by us, it's one little victory. Every time a child feels safe and loved just as they are at FLC, it's one little victory. Every time we make a phone call and check in with one another these days, it's one little victory. Okay, we haven't changed the whole world, but we have changed many, many people's worlds. Just like Jesus did on that day in Capernaum long ago. As Dr. Lowes says, what Mark chooses to highlight at the beginning of Jesus' ministry is a single act of resistance and healing. I like the way he phrases that too. A single act of resistance and healing. One little victory. Some of the hope we have as Christians is that the victory of the resurrection is a pledge of the final victory when we are assured that all will be well and when all the forces that dehumanize, including any kind of death, will be gone forever. In the meantime, we participate determinedly in one little victory after another. Victories of life and love and dignity and healing, knowing that they matter. Trusting that no act of love is ever wasted in God's economy, for love never ends. It is eternal. So make just one little victory today, and then celebrate it and give thanks. Amen. Thank you for your time, friends. Mark your little victories. They matter. They matter to me, and they matter to many people. Be well. Stay strong. Until next time, God be with you.